This is DaKcBomb Comedy World. One room and a garage. I'll show you the garage in a minute. And then over here, we've got a shelf of different avatars that I've had, excluding the Pumpkaboo. Pumpkaboo is just my favorite Pokemon. I just slapped a Kirby face on this one and gave it a TF2 hat to look cute. This is like an actual screenshot from my Switch. Before I got that avatar I was just in, this was kind of my main for a while. Yeah, you can go in the van and sit down, and there are chairs in the seats. I just made a bunch of these like skeleton avatars because there's this. Old video that like goes around Facebook sometimes, like these skeletons marching, and I was like, I want to make that. And I think it started like literally on my 16th birthday. It was honestly random. I remember I was playing like Little Big Planet in my room with my best friend on like my 16th birthday party. There was a point where I just remember like getting up and he was just like, I think he just had a seizure. And I'm like, no, I didn't have a seizure, but you know, it was weird to kind of just wake up, and he told me that like I had like hit my like alarm clock a bunch of times for some reason, and that was a weird detail, but I kind of took that with a grain of salt for a while, and it just started happening at school. I don't remember the first time it ever happened at school. I only ever remember the times like after I wake up after the fact with like the school nurse and like maybe the teacher or my mom standing over me like trying to wake me up, and that's never really fun. At that point, considering like the school nurse and my mom were there, I knew like, okay, this is serious, like this is an actual thing that's happening now. I think directly after that I started seeing like neurologists who immediately just started pushing medications on me. That was kind of my life for the next 2 years of high school. That was like when it started when I was like 16, so that was like sophomore and senior year. It's definitely a unique feeling. When you wake up first thing in the morning, you kind of have an idea of like what's going on. After I wake up from a seizure, I have no idea what's going on. It's like slower than waking up from a sleep, you know? Sometimes I don't even know where I am. Like I think I'm in a completely different. There was one time I thought I was in a completely different city, and I like looked up and I was like, wait a minute, where am I? It would just happen from time to time in the middle of class, in the middle of like, there were a couple times where it happened like in the middle of like our anime club at school. Sometimes it would just happen at home. I'd feel really crappy afterwards, and I think part of me took it as an excuse to just take a week off from school sometimes. But it definitely did, like, there were a lot of times where I would just get a straight up concussion from it, so there were some times that I really needed to take, like, a bit of a break. I'd be sitting down, and I'd fall out of my seat, and, you know, in classrooms, they got these desks that are so closely clumped together. They were desks that had, like, you know, metal frames, and, like, I think the desk tables were usually, like, ceramic or something. I probably hit my head a bunch when I was going down. I'd fall out of chairs or I'd be on the ground because I'm just shaking so violently that, you know, I just fall on the ground. There was one time where I had a seizure while I was walking like through the parking lot, but I didn't get a concussion then, surprisingly enough. You know, anytime my mom has caught me in the middle of a seizure, she said that like my lips were turning blue. I don't know what it's like when it's happening though, because I'm just completely blacked out. And the medication sucked almost worse too, because like high school's already kind of not the greatest time of your life. You're still kind of going through puberty, you're still learning things about yourself, and the medications that they put me on definitely kind of messed with my mood a lot, and I started to just get really angry all the time. I think I naturally just have a little bit of anger issues, but some of that medication just dialed it up a lot, and part of me just didn't want to take the medication at all, because, you know, it messed with my mood, and I think it was something that just further cemented that this was real, and I had to accept the fact that, yeah, I have seizures, and I have to take this medication that's really not sitting well in my body. After I turned 18, there was a good amount of time that I just didn't have any more seizures, and at some point after I turned 19, I just started to ease myself away from taking the medication. I was doing pretty good for a few years, and I kind of just assumed, and some of the neurologists I talked to kind of just assumed, like, it's probably just a phase, like, you know, high school's kind of that moment in life where weird stuff's going on in your brain, so it could honestly just be a phase and you'll probably never have a seizure again. I think it was around when I was like 21 or 22 that I had one again. And I had it while I was at the worst job I ever worked at. I remember for a while when I was working there, I was doing a lot of night shifts. But then there was just one day where they decided to schedule me the next day on the opening shift. I'm not a morning person at all, so I was really tired. I remember every morning they have like their opening like meetup to go over what needs to be done that day or something. I remember I was just falling asleep, like sitting there like, I don't want to be here. You know, I was counting cash on the registers, and next thing I know, I'm being wheeled away and out to the ambulance, and I'm just like, wait, this isn't happening, right? This isn't happening. I don't know. 2017 or 2018 that happened. What sucks the most about that is that I had gotten my brand new car 3 months before I had that seizure. In my state, you can't drive for 3 months after having a seizure. So it was just like the biggest like universal insult that like 3 months after having this nice new car that I just got, I can't drive it. That's actually probably been one of the biggest struggles for me. I really like driving. I like the car that I have. I kind of like being in the driver's seat rather than the passenger because I like feeling I'm in more control. And, you know, when I can drive, I'm in control of like when I can do it. When I have to rely on other people, it's always kind of a struggle because, you know, they've all got their own schedules, and that seizure that I had right after, like in 2018, they put me on a medication that just was so bad. It made my moods so bad. I was just so angry. I'd constantly like wake up in a cold sweat. I was just stressed all the time. And I had a bunch of other seizures like right after I started taking that medication. And so it was like, okay, I need to see a different neurologist because clearly this one doesn't know what's good. And I did, and the neurologist that I saw didn't put me on medication that's specifically to combat seizures, but it was like for people who have like mood swings and stuff. That actually started helping me out a lot. I never really had any bad side effects to it. It seems to be the only medication that I've ever taken that has actually kept like the seizures at bay. Since I've been on that medication, I can trace back to every seizure that I've had on that medication, probably because I forgot to take a few doses before that time, or I decided to mix a little bit of alcohol in that.
Are you worried you could have a seizure while driving?
Yeah. It's probably one of my biggest fears, not gonna lie. You know, to be honest, I kind of rationalize it as, you know, at any given point, someone else on the road could have a seizure and crash into me. There's so many horrible what-ifs that could happen when you're driving on the road. It's better not to think about what might happen and to just think about, like, okay, I'm on the road now, so I need to focus on what I need to do on the right things I need to do right now.
Are seizures random, or does something trigger them?
This is something that's kind of been a topic of discussion between me, my family, and like my neurologist for a while. It's more likely than not stress. Maybe a lack of sleep. I alcohol is probably a contributing factor, but I think stress is kind of the biggest reason that I have them. There's the kind of epilepsy where like you see flashing lights and that gives you a seizure. And I think part of me kind of wishes that that was the case, because then I'd have a specific thing I know I can avoid. I think it's easier to avoid flashing lights than stress. It's really hard to avoid stress. When you start going more into adulthood, like you just get more and more stressed, and I could probably say I've only had one this year. It's probably been a couple last year. They were so frequent in high school that it was like maybe once a month or once every 2 months at that point, but unlucky enough to maybe only have 2 a year at this point. This medication and not drinking alcohol can maybe keep it so that I don't have a seizure at all for the rest of this year at least.
If you could tell everybody in the world one thing, what would it be?
When it comes to seizures, it can be really hard to know that at any given point you're kind of your own hazard to yourself. It can be really hard to just feel like you have any independence anymore. As hard as it is, if you have people who are trying to be there for you, just appreciate that they're being there for you, because it's rough for you, but it's rough for them too. They can't understand what you're going through at all, and it's hard, but you know, they're willing to be there to help you in these trying times. Just appreciate that.